We're all smiles. It's PJ Dykes and JP Mason. It's a Celtic state of mind, and it's Thursday afternoon. JP, you were at the game. We're still talking about it, and quite rightly so. There is a lot to dissect. But what I want to know first of all is about your experience on Tuesday night. Talk to me about getting to that game. First time you've seen Real Madrid in the flesh, I'm guessing.
It is. No, actually, no. I went to a home game at the Bernabeu.
This does not surprise me. I knew that you had probably at some point went and done that, and had that experience.
It was by chance. Happened to find ourselves in Madrid on tour and went to a Madrid game. I don't have any, love of Real Madrid. Never have, but there was a lot of us, and the majority consensus was to go see the game. So we went to Real Madrid against Leganes, and they absolutely tonked them. I think 5 or 6-0. Toni Kroos, Eden Hazard, Sergio Ramos scored as well when he was still there. So yeah, I'd seen them, but I'd long wanted to see them at Celtic Park just because we've played everybody else, it seems, and never Real Madrid. So it was just. I mean, I wanted to get to the ground as early as possible. I didn't want to get caught in any queues. I didn't want to have any issues with my ticket because I was kind of panicking about that as well, with the whole, activation of the card.
Yeah.
It's just something that goes through your mind, especially when on my first game this season I went and I couldn't get in. And obviously, on a game like that, I remember the Man City game, I joined the queue and you could hear "You'll Never Walk Alone." And the next thing, my card didn't work, and I ran down, and the woman was like, "Oh, it should be working." And I went, "Well, it's not." And then we scored while I was in the queue. Dembele scored, and I missed that, and I missed the Champions League, music and the whole
thing. Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's something that you just don't want to put yourself in a position where there's even a possibility of missing that, because these things don't happen that often, and so I was in my seat by, I don't know, 7:10 or something like that. Pretty sober. And just
soaking it up.
Yeah, just excited about, watching Real Madrid doing their pre-match warm-up and just seeing the one-touch passing between them. And it was pretty terrifying, but at the same time, you were confident that what we had to bring to the game, was something at least that we could, bring our game to them a little bit, and we did that so well in that first half. And I know people will be like, "Oh, congratulations, you won, a first half of football." But we heard that enough about a certain other team last season when they drew 0-0 in a game where they got tonked in the first half. So I'm not going to forget about that first half in any hurry, because Callum McGregor's shot goes in, I might still be drinking right now.
See the thing, you can't forget, because it's a different type of analysis. Is that a Stone Roses mug you've got there?
No, it's an 80s movies.
Oh, it looked like the Roses. I was going to say, man. I mean, we don't send this kind of thing like you wear that and I'll wear this, but I thought we both.
I've not even got a Celtic State of Mind mug. That needs to be sorted.
That definitely does need to be sorted. Absolutely. Talking of which, if you want some merch, click on the link under the video. Seamless. See that? No, I think that it is important that you look at what it is that we can take from the game, because we weren't there as spectators. I loved, and I mentioned this other day when I was talking to Amy, I loved the fact that when Ange Postecoglou was asked about the Bernabeu, and how much of an experience that was going to be for him and where it would rank, and basically his answer was, and obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but his answer went along the lines of the fact that he's not a sightseer, he's not a tourist, anybody can go to the Bernabeu and do the stadium tour. That's not what he's there for. He's not there for the experience. He's there to build a team, to develop a team, to get experience into players who hadn't yet had it, so that when they come up against this challenge again, JP, they'll be better equipped. They'll have the tools. Do you think, there are players I'm going to specifically look at, but do you think that particular game passed anybody by? I mean, going into the game, we're looking at various players who had obviously made the step up to Celtic, and then this is another step up to the Champions League. Because I'm thinking of a couple who we're going to talk about who absolutely took it in their stride. And I'm thinking of guys like Hatate and Matt O'Reilly took the game in their stride. And by the way, people might think this is a bit of a stretch too far, but I'm going to even throw in Jens. I thought Jens, having not played much football, didn't look out of place in the middle of the defence in a game like that. Did you think it passed anybody by? And by the way, that wouldn't concern me too much under the circumstances at this stage, if it did.
I think it would be harsh to say passed them by, but I think Abada definitely looked a bit, oh my God, I'm playing Real Madrid. This is, one of the biggest games of my career, possibly ever. I just think his decision making wasn't quite as good. And we don't know exactly the reasoning for him being hooked at half time, but I just think he maybe was a little bit overawed by the occasion. I mean, the guy's 20, do you know what I mean? You can't really have a go at him for that. I mean, what a massive game to play at this age at this age in your career. And then, you couldn't have possibly escaped the build up to the whole thing and the excitement, the anticipation, and then suddenly you're on the park wearing a Celtic shirt and expected to deliver. That said, I think a few people have said this, that he probably would have taken that chance that Maeda had in the second half.
I know.
Just because of his instinct. Like, he didn't have the time where he had to think, how am I going to beat this player, or how am I going to get down and put the cross in. It was just a simple, it fell to him. Would he have the time to take the touch? Remember he took the touch against Dundee United and rocketed it into the roof of the net. Aye. That was a pressure game. That was the last minute. Okay, it's not Real Madrid, of course, but you just wonder. Juranovic did fizz the ball in, really. It was right in front of me. So as soon as Juranovic hit it, he almost hit it like a sort of cross-come shot. So it did come at him. It did come at Maeda quite fast, but you do ask yourself, would Abada have done differently there? But as for the rest of them, I don't really think you could say it passed them by. There's no way you can get in at halftime 0-0 against Real Madrid if the game's passed you by. There's no room for passengers in that first half, and everybody contributed. And that shot from McGregor, I've watched it 15, 20 times now, and you just think, wow, it's an inch to the right, and it's inside the goal.
Even a different spin on the ball, and it goes, it ricochets in a different direction. The reason I ask is because we've got to this stage here where, we're now playing the Europe's elite, the finest in European football, potentially the finest in the world. And you've got Ange Postecoglou on this journey of rebuilding Celtic. I mean, that's exactly what this is. I mean, he's rebuilding Celtic. And we've come up against that side pretty quickly, if you think about it, just over a year since he took over. And he has managed to get a group of players, JP, that many of whom, and I haven't checked this, by the way, I fired it into the group chat after the game. I says, how many of these guys have never played in the Champions League, in the starting 11? And he's managed to bring them together, and they equipped themselves in such a way that you can't say there were any passengers. I'm going to run through a few of the things, and we'll come back to Hatate and O'Reilly, because although I'm pointing them out, there were other really big performers, McGregor, for example. But Matt O'Reilly was making his 86th senior appearance in football. Never mind in Champions League football. That was his 86th game of football as a senior professional footballer. Unbelievable. Rio Hatate, 103 games he's played. He's 24. He's 24. He's played 103 games of football. And those two guys, for me, not only didn't the game pass them by, they didn't look out of place. And I've been hearing all this nonsense over the last couple of days about, unless you've got 200 million or 100 million quid, you can't compete in the Champions League. There's your proof right there. There's two players who cost in the region of 3 million quid combined. And for me, they went toe-to-toe with Real Madrid. They went toe-to-toe with Europe's finest. Hardly any experience in the tank between the two of them, JP. So do you think that flies in the face of anybody who believes you need to spend 100 or 200 million quid to compete at that level?
Well, I mean, you definitely need to spend big money to compete, as in with an idea of getting to the latter stages of the tournament. But at this point in time, in the group stages, depending on your draw, obviously, I mean, we couldn't have got a bigger team to start back in the Champions League than Real Madrid. how things go in the next two games against Shakhtar, who won comfortably, unbelievably, with Marian Shved scoring twice.
We'll come to that. Yeah.
And then so they obviously battered Leipzig, and Leipzig have parted ways with their manager as a result. And I believe Marco Rose is going in. From what I read this morning, I think last night or this morning, I read that Marco Rose was going to be the next coach. But he's not got a magic wand. He's just not going to you don't suddenly have a brilliant team, playing straight away for you and adopting your methods and tactics and everything else. As we've seen, it doesn't happen overnight. So, I would be cautiously optimistic about what we could do against Leipzig. Shakhtar are a complete unknown quantity, I think, now that they've gone and got that result in Germany. But I think it's all about your draws, really, and how your team is playing. I mean, we saw before the weekend we'd won 5-0 away at Kilmarnock, 9-0 away at Dundee United, 4-1 away at Ross County. It stood to reason that we were going into that game and you were confident we were going to score goals against Rangers. So we're a good team playing well, which showed in that first half against Real Madrid. That was against Real Madrid. So it's all, you've said it before, you get it right domestically, then it should carry in to Europe as well. It's not as if you're just going to build a team for Europe and then, just sort of tread water domestically. If you've got a team playing well in the domestic competitions and playing as well as we are, then it stands to reason that should carry on into Europe, regardless of money spent, because you've either got a team playing well or you've not. And there's no egos, there's no superstars in that Celtic team. You get the feeling that they would get slapped back down very quickly if anybody did try to get above their station and start, swaggering about the place or trying to stare people out. It's just it's brilliant. It's brilliant to watch, and I was so pleased that there was still a big crowd there at the end, to cheer up the team.
That's huge.
Yeah, you always think at games like that. I mean, I've been at all the Tonkins that we've taken in the Champions League. Your Barcelonas, your PSGs, your Leverkusens last season. That game on Tuesday felt like the Leverkusen game last season, where you're coming away going 3-0, quite harsh on us, and that's mad to think that we're talking about it being Real Madrid. They just, they're frightening. At their third goal, one of the guys behind me shouted, "Terrible defending! That's terrible defending!" They must have put about 33 passes together to make that goal, and went through us like a hot knife through butter. I don't think you could blame the defence at that point.
No, this is the thing, and Kev won't mind me saying it, but we had a to and fro on the messaging service after the game, where I was saying just that, JP. I was like, right, okay, let's take the Modric goal in isolation, right? Isn't that down to his sheer brilliance? If we did anything slightly differently, would he not have still found a way to score because he's that good? I mean, I know that there are going to be people out there who can pinpoint and analyse every single position, every player, and give us a yard or a margin here or there. Modric will still find a way, JP, because he's one of the best footballers on the planet. He's going to find a way. I mean, even the way he finished that, no adjustment to the weight of his body. Whatever part of the body that he can strike that ball with, he's doing it outside of the right boot. Beautiful goal. But we do have a habit, and it's understandable that as soon as that happens, we're like, how could we have prevented that goal? Some goals you can't prevent. It's going to happen because you're playing such a high quality footballer. And I'm going to bring my failed football career into this conversation, JP, because I never played at any level, and I certainly never scored a hat-trick at Celtic Park. I know someone who did.
You scored against the school teachers, though, I believe.
Oh, I did. You've seen that goal?
Yeah.
That was great. It was captured. There is video footage for anybody out there who wants to see it. But I'll tell you, I remember being at a level where you would come up against, and being in Fife football, in the Scottish Cup, the best draw ever was Glen Oakle, because you had to play them obviously behind closed doors. But in the Scottish Cup, you would always come up against somebody. And I remember, even just things like Gairdoch were a team from the kind of Central Belt.
Oh my God,
and
I played at Gairdoch. Aye,
unbelievable.
Next to Earth Castle.
Yep, and the thing, exactly, and but what you learned from a very, very young age is that there are levels when it comes to ability, strength, vision, skill, the whole thing, and often you're simply on a different level, and we found that when we were travelling to these places. And I remember on one occasion, I was never asked back, strangely enough, but I went to train with Tynecastle, and I just couldn't get the ball, couldn't keep up with anyone. Now, that is a tiny microcosm of sport at a very, very amateur kind of level. But it carries on as obviously sport continues into the professional ranks. So you've got levels. And at this moment in time, when you are really steamrolling every side domestically, and then you come up against Real Madrid, I think it's credit to Ange Postecoglou on that side that we were able to raise our game and actually compete with that side for 55 minutes, because we're not being tested to the same level by the opponents, but I think we are being tested to that level by Ange day to day. And I think that's this whole "we never stop" thing. It's a mantra, but it's become one of these slogans that you can throw in a cap or a t-shirt, and it's just a cool wee saying, and you associate it with Ange. But there is a lot of meaning to it, JP, because what he means by that, what I'm taking from it, is every training session is preparing you for that night against Real Madrid. Every single meal that you have, every single decision you make, every game that you play against mediocre or good Scottish opposition is preparing you for that night against Real Madrid or Shakhtar Donetsk, and I think that's what I take from the "we never stop." It's not just about, right, we've scored 8 goals against Dundee United, let's score 9. It's about preparing yourself for these big occasions. And I think that there is no doubt that a year and a bit in, Ange certainly had the team prepared for it, but he had us as supporters prepared for it as well, JP, because we knew we were going into that game. And we've all had a bloody nose in Europe as Celtic fans. We've all had an absolute drubbing. But there was a strange kind of feeling going into this game that wasn't going to happen. I mean, Liam Carrigan from Celtic Down Under was talking about getting a draw and getting a win and stuff like that. And it's bizarre that we were even talking like that. We didn't get it. But he had given us that belief that he was definitely going to ensure that we were prepared for the challenge. And for 55 minutes... a wee bit of spin in McGregor's ball and it goes in. Maeda, I remember Van Hooijdonk saying against PSG that the floodlights got in his eyes. Maeda, any kind of instinctive toe poke, the ball's in the back of the net. And as you say, had Abada been on the park, who knows? Had the chance dropped to Giakoumakis, who knows? But we missed these chances, and it came back to haunt us because, Real Madrid would have been rattled at that stage, and I'm sure they would have then been able to answer the challenge themselves, JP. But the very fact that we're even talking like this shows what Ange is aiming for. I'm going to bring in as much comments as I can today, but the reason I've brought up the banner is I've been getting kind of DMs all day today about people like losing their mind at the prospect of Ange Postecoglou leaving Celtic. And it's no surprise, JP, that clubs are going to be interested in him at this stage, is it?
Nah, I mean, we saw it with Brendan Rodgers from very early on. There you go, 18 minutes, Brendan Rodgers.
Is he one of the predecessors I was referring to? Probably. Just didn't know what to type his name.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was getting linked with moves away. I mean, probably from the moment he walked through the door, because people didn't think that he was worthy of being a Celtic manager, and he was a bigger fish and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now that Postecoglou's doing as well as he is, and people are picking up on his football and kind of legacy that he's starting to lay down at Celtic. Independent commentators, I've seen a lot of people that have got no skin in the game with regards to Celtic, making comments about Ange Postecoglou and sort of waving the flag for him as if to say, "Oh, here, check out what this guy's doing at Celtic, because it's pretty good," And you see some of the graphs that are presented of, the players' performance levels against Real Madrid, and you're going, right, okay, well, this guy knows how to set up a team, and he's no he's no idiot. I mean, it's mad to think that a year ago we went to Livingston and lost 1-0 and came out. I remember coming out the ground that day just going, where do we go from here? Because we did look a little bit kind of, not clueless, but I mean, Livingston had again taken 3 points off us, and you're just thinking, how is this continually happening? And then a year down the line, we're going into a game, and the manager's saying in the press conference beforehand, "Oh, you want me to burst their bubble, do you? You want me to..." He goes, "I want them bouncing in here, and I hopefully we'll send them bouncing out as well." And do you know what? Even after a 3-0 defeat, I didn't bounce out maybe, but I wasn't, feeling as bereft as I have done in previous batterings at Celtic Park, where you've not laid a glove on them. Like, we've not got anywhere near them. And I wouldn't have thought there would have been too many Madrid fans shouting, "That's terrible defending." If McGregor's shot had gone in, they would have applauded the goal because it was a great strike.
Yeah.
Great hold-up play from Giakoumakis. And we were in a position at that point where a goal wouldn't have flattered us, if that's the right terminology. We were worthy of it. Obviously, then you then as soon as you score, then it's immediately over to them to say, right, well, what can you do? And we all know what they can do. They showed it in the second half, what they can do. But Postecoglou putting himself in the shop window. I don't want to call it a shop window, but I mean the Champions League. Ultimately, there's a lot more eyes in the Champions League than there is on a run-of-the-mill Scottish League game or a cup game, or even the Europa League. I don't think, beating Ferencváros home and away last season and beating Real Betis at home, even going toe-to-toe with Leverkusen away and Betis away, I don't think many people would have stood up and took notice of Postecoglou at that point. But if we were to be fortunate enough to get a win or a win and a draw in the next couple of games, then things start to shift in terms of that. But I don't think he's cut from the same cloth as, Brendan Rodgers had one eye on going back to England as soon as he was up here. You knew that. We all maybe kind of tried to pretend that we didn't believe that whilst he was dishing out the sort of the anecdotes and the Celtic patter that we all...
The half-truths, yeah.
Aye. But I mean, with Ange Postecoglou, you get the feeling that if he does have an idea of how long he wants to stay here for, it's certainly not leaving halfway through a season, and it's certainly not leaving until he feels his work is done. That's how I feel watching him and listening to him in interviews.
Yeah, there is a job that he started, and that trajectory we were talking about again during the week there has been so steep in terms of the improvement and bringing his team together. That will obviously level off, JP, because it can't continue in that vein for 3 or 4 or 5 years. But he's done what he's had to do domestically at the moment. We're looked fierce this season, and you just know that Ange has had one eye on the Champions League. He's not had one eye on the English League, and that's the difference. Brendan Rodgers, when he comes in, as you say, stepping stone. If he looked at Celtic as if we were a stepping stone to get him back into the English Premiership. He got what he wanted, and away he went. I don't think Ange is the same kind of character. And the thing with this is we've been disappointed time and time again with people within football because of the mercenary nature of players and managers in the past. But we can only go with our gut on this. And I truly believe what I hear when Ange Postecoglou talks. I think we've seen it in the press conferences that he's had with Celtic fan media, which, I think you get a different Ange in those press conferences than you do when he's up in front of the broadcast media, the mainstream media, as it were. And then you get a completely different Ange when he's sitting in front of Paul Slane and Cy Ferry as well. So, I just think the one thing about him is he's genuine. And, I don't, at this moment in time, have concerns. The time comes when every single one of our legends leaves. That time comes. I was looking, for some other reason, looking at the departure of Henrik Larsson. You know what I mean? And you think to yourself, Larsson left after he had given us what he had to give. And he went away and he produced and performed elsewhere. But I can't remember anyone saying a bad word about him at the time or since. And I think that when Ange, eventually it comes to that point, then I think we're going to be left with the same impression of him, because I don't think he's got the fibre to leave during the night and no say his goodbyes and all this kind of stuff. No. I'm going to bring in some of the comments, and by the way, I'm not even thinking about it. Right, I'm not even thinking about that eventuality. Magnet 67. By the way, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great to buck that trend where you've got all these rich leagues that think that, you know, money can buy them anything? That, you know, they can just have that power and that control over any person, anybody's registration, anybody's business, just by turning up with more money than them. It would be great to buck that trend and say, well, actually, I've got a job here. It's a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan. Come back to me and speak to me when I'm finished. You know what I mean? I would love to see it. And if there's one man going to buck that trend, it's Ange Postecoglou. Afternoon, Acsom team. No way on earth will Ange be lured away to any mediocre EPL club. Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, he is where he is because he wants to compete like he did on Tuesday night. And after the game, JP, he was disappointed.
He definitely was.
He doesn't want to be an also-ran. You know, he wants to compete at that level. And you've got to take your hat off. Another thing I want to say, obviously, we bigged up the Celtic support on the night. I watched back the footage on an American-based channel, and although it wasn't two American commentators, there were two people who I don't think had a great, real interest in Scottish football. They were covering the game. I think maybe Kev Graham was watching the same game as me. And basically they were saying, wow, you know, Haksabanovic, the last time he played for Celtic was against Ross County. And look at him now. And they were talking about Scottish football in disparaging terms. But by the end of the game, they had a respect for Celtic, JP. You could tell the way they were talking, the way that Celtic had approached the game against the European champions. They had a respect for Celtic. And this is another thing as well. We need to start rebuilding that, don't we, on this stage? How big a legacy is that performance, the atmosphere, the overall night? How big is that for Celtic going forward in order to attract new players, attract new sponsorship, increase the coverage and the exposure of the club across the globe?
Just reminds people what we're all about. You know, as a club, there's numerous news outlets and media people I've heard of, people I've not heard of. You see it on Twitter, you know, people with ticks, so they're of substance, verified and all that. You know, you see them posting stories, you know, or clips just saying like, wow, what an atmosphere, this place is something special. And, you know, I don't like this kind of feeling like you're almost embarrassed to say, oh, that Celtic Park is a really good place to go and play football. I mean, you shouldn't be. You know, there's a lot of kind of slagging about that, you know, on Twitter usually from, I don't know, Dundee United or Motherwell fans or something like that. Where, oh, here they go talking about their famous atmosphere again. It's like, well, it is. We've just played Real Madrid in the Champions League. Yeah, we got beat, but we put on a show. The Green Brigade's tifo was amazing. You know, again, that gets slagged. I don't know why. It looked brilliant, as it did on Saturday as well. That with the smoke bomb, etc. That was great. Some things that let us down, very, very small things, but I don't understand why people want to throw things at a player when they're celebrating a goal. I know it was only a cup of juice and a hot dog bun, but why throw anything? Just let the guy celebrate. He scored a goal. He's at whatever age he is, 20. What age is Vinicius Junior? 21, 20?
And what a player!
He scored a goal in the Champions League. He's going to celebrate. He's not going to. He's not going to walk off back to the halfway line and go, oh, sorry, I scored. You know, he's going to celebrate. So don't chuck things at him. Do you know what I mean? I know that getting hit by a cup of juice isn't going to put him out for the season. Neither is a hot dog bun. But it's not a good look. And I know, again, it was only a couple of people that did it. So you can't really say, oh, well, it's a large portion of our fans, because 2 or 3 people out of 60,000 isn't a lot, but it's visual and it's not a good look. And I looked along to watch him celebrate, and I saw the things raining down, or a couple of things raining down immediately, and I just thought, oh God, why? Of all the things to do, you just take your medicine. You know, it was a horrible moment. Of course it was, because we were in the game, and then all of a sudden we're 1-0 down, and you're like, oh well, they're not going to lose a 1-0 lead.
See the thing, I'm not going to get on a high horse, or maybe I am. So anybody who watching who thinks I'm on my high horse, give me a shout or slag me off or whatever. But see these people that do it though, JP, right? I look at them like yourself with absolute despair because, again, I was doing a wee bit of research on the Rapid Vienna game. I should wash my mouth out after saying this, but obviously, we somehow overcame that first leg deficit on a famous Celtic Park night back in 1984. Famous night. I remember my old man going down to Old Trafford to see the one-off playoff game that we ended up losing and getting knocked out. Rapid Vienna, of course, got to the final, played Everton, etc. And it was one of these people. Different era, JP, but it was one of these people. I was going to call them something there, but I thought to myself, I better not. That threw a bottle at the player. Now, yeah, ever since then, and it's almost 40 years since it happened, we focus on the player because he completely feigned injury. The bottle was nowhere near him. TV footage showed that. It was nowhere near the guy. And he left Celtic Park with bandages around his head and everything, right? He looked like one of the cone heads. His head was up to here with bandages. The bottle went nowhere near him. And he feigned it, but throwing the bottle, there's the issue. I don't know who it was. I don't know if there was ever any legalities after it, but these people do exist, and they ruin things for people. They really do. And I could be hypercritical of them because I think that in the past, JP, Acsom as a platform, I as an individual, we've been criticised like as if we're one of these scoundrels that do something bad for Celtic's good name and reputation, but we don't. It's these people that are throwing things at opposition players. They're the ones that are putting Celtic's good name and dragging it through the mud. I just wanted to read this out from Mark McGowan, and it's not a direct message, so I'm not breaching any kind of privacy. He put this up on the Facebook page of A Celtic State of Mind. Read, and I'll tell you what, this is an unbelievable thing to wake up and read. He says, not Celtic related, but I just want to thank Acsom. I was an alcoholic drinking litres of vodka every day. I've been sober for nearly 7 months. Watching your daily bulletins and music helped me through my hardest times. You guys do a lot more than you realise. Thank you. And that was on the Facebook page. And these people appreciate that what we're doing, JP, is just a couple of Celtic fans who, by the way, during the week, because you're so busy and because life takes over, we don't generally see each other that often in person. So two Celtic fans hooking up, talking about Celtic, about one of the greatest nights in European football that I can remember. And unfortunately, people give you flack for that. You know what? Focus your flack on these people if you see them in the stadium. Have a word with them, man. I mean, that's what's bringing Celtic's name into disrepute. After such an amazing night, an amazing tifo. I mean, the very fact, where else on this planet, right, would Real Madrid go and play football and be met with a chorus of Viva la Quinta Brigada, right? Where else on this planet? And by the way, the people singing it, JP, know why they're singing it. Mm-hmm. They know why they're singing it. Nowhere else on the planet would you get that. That's how special Celtic is, and these individuals just ruin it. And in many ways for me, I know
you'll get pulled up in the pronunciation, Paul. Quinta, Viva la Quinta Brigada.
Did I say Quinta?
Yes.
What other words am I really, really bad at pronouncing?
Just saying, I bought that Christy Moore album when I was in first year at uni, and me and my pal Michael, who I've mentioned in the show quite a lot, we used to play that Christy Moore album with Viva la Quinta Brigada on it very, very often in the halls of residence of Craig Lockhart, Napier Uni, much to the disdain of D-Floor, who were full of fans of the other club, shall we say, and quite a lot from the north of Ireland as well, which certainly didn't go down well. And well, we won. That was that season, the 97-98 season, first year at uni. What a time to be alive.
Indeed. By the way, talking of uni, I was at Tommy Burns dinner at the Heriot Watt. Mm-hmm. And one of the speakers was Professor Willie Maley. Mm-hmm. We got chatting, and a few months later he came on to A Celtic State of Mind. That video's still on the channel for anybody who wants to just listen to an absolute brain for an hour. I'm talking about him, know the guy asking the questions. And it was phenomenal. But, that's the kind of things that make me proud to be a Celtic fan, even though I'm really bad at pronouncing the name of the song. That kind of thing makes me proud. And in the same breath, I'm being critical of one or two, an absolute minority, JP.
I mean, there's no point in turning it into a crusade or anything like that. I mean, it was definitely a couple of people, but it's just a couple of people on that stage in the Champions League was a bit two people too many for me. And then the other thing I want to mention, because I saw a lot of it on Twitter as well, was just like, hope all these clowns clapping Modric off the park. It would be good when they're not there on Saturday when we're playing Motherwell at home. Well, guess what? I will be there on Saturday at home at Motherwell, and I did applaud Modric as he left the pitch, because he was leaving the pitch. He wasn't able to do anything anymore. I wouldn't applaud something that he did whilst he was on the pitch. That's a bit mental. I don't have a Real Madrid and Celtic half and half scarf. Never would I. But I don't see the issue with applauding somebody who truly is one of the greatest midfielders of his generation.
It's class. JP, I just think it's class.
It's not.
I think any neutral observer watching that will be thinking, oh, look at the Celtic fans. That is absolute a touch of class. You know what I mean?
Like I said, he's leaving the field. You're applauding a guy leaving the field because it's happened before. It's happened.
It's no Nacho Novo. You know what I mean? No. We're not applauding somebody like that.
No, absolutely not. And it's not as if he's this vicious guy who's been going around 2-footing people or anything like that. He basically played every single pass with the outside of his foot. Me and the guy Mark in front of me were like, we lost count of the amount of outside of the foot passes that he made, left and right, by the way. So, you don't get to see players like that often at Celtic Park. In fact, never. And I don't think I'll ever see him again. So,
it's just appreciation.
In 10 years' time, I want to look back at the fact that I sat with my arms folded and my face grimaced, or I was giving them the finger or something like that. Like, nah.
Right, let's fast forward, right? So there's a wee guy and he's looking up at his dad. Were you at that Real Madrid game, Dad? Aye, son, aye. Did you see such and such? Aye, I threw a pie at him. Aye. You know what I mean? I'm going to be proud to say that, no, I applauded him. He was a great player. And we've seen some great players. Prosanecki, remember he came.
I remember applauding him off the pitch as well.
Unbelievable,
smoked about 40 fags a day.
Yeah, Stojkovic. We've had players that have come to Celtic Park, and it's just been an absolute pleasure to see them. I remember the Peter Grant testimonial, and they had Klinsmann and Matthias on the park at the same time, right? And there was a wee guy. I wonder who he is, actually. I do sometimes wonder, who was the wee guy? Who was the guy that threw the bottle against Rapid Vienna? Who was the wee guy that invaded the pitch in the Peter Grant testimonial? And he done that wee weavy one where the kind of overweight steward couldn't quite stop him, and then he just weaved his way in, and he just ran right up to Klinsmann and shook his hand. That was it, and the Celtic fans gave him a standing ovation. You know what I mean? But these types of players are just thinking, welcome them in. The greatest names come to Celtic Park, and he was another one, Modric.
I mean,
absolutely
the
brilliant.
Real Madrid fans applauded Jimmy Johnston at the Stefano testimonial, didn't they?
Ole, every time he kicked the ball,
I mean,
just a touch of class.
It's mutual appreciation. It's not. I mean, I wouldn't applaud Neymar off the park. There you go. Neymar, supposedly one of the greats of the modern day. I certainly wouldn't applaud him off the park, regardless of what he's done, because I don't respect the guy as a football player. Messi, different story, but Messi got applauded off the park at Celtic Park as well, I'm sure.
Listen, let's flip it a wee bit then. I love it when these players go on about how great a place Celtic Park is. I mean, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a wall at Celtic Park at one point, and it had all these quotes on it. I don't know if it was just for an event or whatever, and Maldini was up there, and all the greats were up there with quotes about, their memories of Celtic Park, their experiences of Celtic Park. So if we're going to take that, JP, we're going to take the plaudits, then I think you've got to take the other side, and it's a mutual respect.
But those quotes are from players who lost at Celtic Park. So, you know what I mean? So whatever we've done in those games as a support have intimidated them enough during the game, whilst they're being able to affect the game, to nullify or partly nullify what they can do as a player. I mean, we beat Man United, we've beaten AC Milan, we've beaten Juventus, Porto, Ajax. There's a litany of names that we've beaten at Celtic Park, and those quotes have come from players who've been beaten. So it's not as if it's all like, oh well, gentle pat on the head. Oh, we Celtic they were a nice wee club to play, and fans were getting all that. So no, we left without the 3 points, and it made it more difficult in our next game. Or we didn't get top of the group, we finished second, or things like that. So I think you can have it lives in, or it goes both ways. You can be respectful to a club, and you can also support your club at the same time. I don't think you need to go one way or the other in an extreme.
Yeah, I know. And at the same time, I also love the feuds. I love the fact that, Rapid Vienna, and you still think about them in a certain way because of what happened back in 1984. Racing Club, Buenos Aires, and all these different clubs that we've faced, and there is no love lost. That's football. But like you say, let's show the respect that we get from these big clubs and these big players. And Jungle Lion, Lowell was on mad money at Celtic. Give Ange that mad money now. Surely to God the board can see he's creating a monster. I think when it comes to Ange, it isn't about the money. It's not about the money, is it? It's about ambition. It's about trying to achieve something beyond the norm. I mean, he goes on, JP, it's brilliant when he talks about, giving working class people extraordinary experiences that otherwise they wouldn't have in their lives, That's unbelievable. This is a cliche, it's becoming a cliche, but he absolutely gets what we're all about as a Celtic fan base. And I don't think it is about money. I really don't. Maybe what Jungle Lion's meaning as well, to a lesser degree, is give him what he needs to do that job to fulfill his ambitions.
That's different. I mean, the guy is 57 years old. He's obviously appreciative of where he's got to. Celtic have taken a chance on him. It was a chance. We all said at the time, whether or not you want to have the benefit of hindsight or whatever, there has been people who, are championing themselves for saying at the end of May last year, oh, Ange is this or Ange is that. It's like you had absolutely no idea at that point in time what was coming. None of us did. None of us could have foresaw this level of, success, or not just success, but the way that the team's playing. So, it was a gamble, and Celtic took that gamble on him. And I would think, although I don't know, that he probably feels loyalty and a responsibility to Celtic as a result of that, to not just go down to a Brighton or whoever in England or elsewhere. I think he's, like I said earlier, I think he's in the middle of doing something at Celtic that was a really, really difficult starting point, and where he's got to in such a short space of time in a year makes you wonder what could happen a year down the line from now. That's the interesting thing, because right now you would say we were definite favourites for the league title after what happened on Saturday. Rangers have got to get to January before they even look at signing anybody else to supplement that squad, which we were all told was this amazing team and squad that got to the Europa League final and won the Scottish Cup and everything else, and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. They did nothing. Did nothing. They barely mustered a shot at goal as on Saturday, and all their fan media, their cheerleaders in the actual media, all have to actually stop at the end of that game on Saturday and go, do you know what? Celtic are actually really good. They're well coached. Their team is all playing for each other. Their signings and recruitment have been spot on. Rangers had Yilmaz and Davies, who we missed out on the bench last night. Now, does that not hark back to a Champions League qualifier when we had Julian and Bolingoli on the bench? Two players that weren't trusted in the exact same positions, by the way. So you're wondering, is the same thing going over there recruitment-wise going on that happened with us prior with Neil Lennon? Who knows? That's for them to worry about. But our recruitment has been spot on, and you can't argue with that. Now people in the media and their fan media can't argue with it either, because it's staring them right in the face.
And also we're at a stage, JP, where that can't be undone in one transfer window. You know, we're now at a stage where Ange has done so well in 3 transfer windows, right, that he's not going to start underperforming in terms of his recruitment. We've got a strategy. And what it would require for anyone to challenge us now is to have, you know, an impeccable record in the transfer market, but to do it in such a way where the overhaul would be vast. And when you're hearing the manager saying, we've no cash, or there's no big pots of money in the bank and all this stuff, it doesn't concern me in the slightest. I mean, we've barely spoken about the Rangers game since you came on today. We've barely touched on that because we've been so focused on Real Madrid. And then obviously we'll be looking ahead to the weekend as well. But the way that Ange just turned it around in 3 transfer windows, he had to be spot on pretty much with just about every transfer that we brought in. There's one or two that, you know, you could maybe argue were maybe legacy lined up signings that Ange didn't play a massive part in anyway, but largely he's got it spot on. I want to talk about a couple of them. ACC, good day blokes, what's the caper? I'm guessing that's what's the crack. 7:30pm here in Western Australia. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us in Australia. We've got quite a lot of Australian viewers tuning into the show now, and we do appreciate your support.
Ask him what that was a band in his profile picture, and I was trying to make out who are the band in your picture. ACC. Well, I would imagine it'll be an Australian band. I mean, the fact that they're upside down doesn't really, well, it's fitting consider where he is.
I'm going to say Midnight Oil.
Nah, no way. It looks too new a picture. Nah, it'll be like there's a glut of Australian bands these days that have come out of nowhere, like Pond and Tame Impala and all that are you know, they've got like quite a good scene, like new Aussie bands that do well in Australia and then come over here, and then all the Australians that live in Glasgow go and see them in a venue here, and they sell out venues here. I've seen it happen loads of times.
Nah, well, probably. Let us know, ACC. Get into the comments. Someone out there will be able to tell us. Urban Culture, Ange's going nowhere. Well, that's fair enough. Him and his players are going to achieve something big in Europe in time. And
I think Europe would be qualifying for the last 16. Let's face facts. That would be if we did that, it would be absolutely massive.
We look back at the times where we have done it, JP, and it's been too long since we've competed at that level. And, you know, I do get some of the comments around the vast amounts of money that these clubs put into the transfer kitties to get to that level. I completely understand that. And the club will be saying, well, if you progress by one round, you know, that's only going to amount for this amount of income based again, you know, and working that against how much you actually spend. So everything's going to be on a business sense. But the actual impact of someone like Celtic getting to that stage of this tournament for the club would be massive, and it allows you then to build. I think no matter what happens this season in the Champions League, if we come away from that with 6 games in the Champions League, JP, we've done better than we did last year. And Ange will see it as progress, and hopefully the experiences that we get from this campaign we can put into next year, you know, and the next campaign as well, and we'll get better. Because some of the things I was saying about Hatate and O'Reilly, for example, the O'Reilly stat that he's played 86 games of senior football is astonishing when you see how he is performing at that particular level on that platform. And we spoke prior to the game about players stepping up to perform on a consistent basis for Celtic. Hatate's done it. O'Reilly's done it. I'm going to say Jota could be in that category, because although I know he's had a couple of loan deals away from Benfica, the lion's share of his football was at B level, second string level for Benfica. So he's come to senior football, and what we're now seeing this season is a consistency in Jota domestically that I'm not going to say he was inconsistent, but you know, he had good kind of passages and bad last season. And when he's bad, it's better than a lot of others anyway. But these guys have now had that step up, JP. You know, they've now had that step up to the Champions League. They didn't look out of place. And young James McKenzie on yesterday's show, I thought, made a really good point in that we might not be able to afford Champions League quality players, but we can produce them. Do you think that's what we're doing with these guys?
Well, I mean, it certainly, you know, stands to reason that we're giving them a platform to show what they can do at that level. And for 55 60 minutes on Tuesday, they showed that they could play at that level. I mean, obviously we weren't like absolutely battering Real Madrid. Let's not like try and rewrite history here. We just looked like we belonged in a game against Real Madrid. We didn't, run ring round them. We didn't batter the goalkeeper with lots of shots, but we certainly, you could see that the players trusted the system, and I don't know a great deal about football tactics or systems. I never claimed to. I'm just a guy that's loved and watched Celtic for a long time now. And watching the players, they all trusted each other. They've built up that trust within each other that they'll trust each other away in Dingwall on a Wednesday night, and they'll trust each other at home against Real Madrid on a Tuesday night. It's quite clear to see that that they absolutely will, play the way the manager wants them to play, and I've not seen that much in a Celtic side in my lifetime. That you can apply those principles against any opposition. And you look back, I asked this, I was walking out just at the Forge, I was heading up to the Duke bar on Saturday after the game, and there was an older guy, looked like he was maybe in his sort of mid-70s or whatever, walking kind of, I'd actually seen him as soon as I came out of Celtic Park, and I met somebody that I was chatting to. So by the time I got to the Forge, I ended up back alongside this guy who I'd seen coming out of the ground, and he was just walking kind of gingerly, and I just tapped him on the shoulder. I went, "How does that compare with you've seen?" I said, "You've seen a lot more than me. How does that compare?" And he went, "I tell you what, son, absolutely fantastic. He says that's as good a Celtic side as I've seen in a long, long time." And he will remember the time when the principles that Jock Stein put in place applied in Scotland and in Europe, and we were going and doing it in Europe as well, and obviously did it to the final whistle in Lisbon. So, that's I know that's only one guy and all the rest of it, but I get the feeling that this is a similar. I'm not saying that we're going to do that, absolutely not, but it's a similar kind of vibe around the team and around the practices and the principles of what he's put in place.
I love hearing stuff like that. And you've actually made me think that you were talking there about going to Dingwall and then Real Madrid. In the past, and we know it happened because it's been spoken about when we've been trying to sign a player, JP, and the player in question was Ginola, just to try and get the right pronunciation because I'm useless at it. And he was in a meeting. He was in a meeting with Fergus McCann, Tommy Burns, and Willie Hawkey was in the meeting as well. And he speaks about it in a book. It was either We Are Celtic Supporters or Faithful Through and Through. It was a book written by Richard Purden. There were three of them. Keeping the Faith was the other one. And he's interviewed Willie Hawkey, who tells the story when they're trying to sign Ginola. And McCann used the immortal line, "Can he do it on a wet Tuesday night at Brockville?" And Willie Hawkey's kicking him under the table as if to say, "Stop trying to put this guy off from signing for Celtic." Obviously, he went and signed for Newcastle. But do you think now that the attitude at Ange is not whether or not he can cut it at Dingwall, but maybe the question is, can he do it on a Tuesday night against Real Madrid? Is that the mentality of Ange Postecoglou? Can he do it to the level that I want him to play at? Now, JP has dropped out, so I'm going to have to speak to you guys and girls in the comment section until such times that JP comes back in. It could well be an issue at my end. Here he comes. Here he comes. Did you drop out just for a wee second there, mate?
Your screen started to go quite
wonky,
wild, and then you froze, and then I disappeared.
Deary me. Maybe somebody out there is downloading or uploading in the studio outside, so they will be reprimanded, obviously, because I'm a control freak. No, but what I'm trying to say is, has the
book, the Richard Purden book,
the mentality, has it changed? Are we no longer concerned if somebody can do it against Falkirk at a wet Brockville on a Tuesday night, and we're now thinking, can they do it against Real Madrid on a Tuesday night on a European platform? Has that mentality changed?
I mean, you go back to Neil Lennon talking about the culture. What did he mean when he said the culture has to change? What was he talking about? Was he talking about this? It would be interesting. It would be really interesting to have an interview with Neil Lennon and Ange Postecoglou. Maybe not now because they're, Ange Postecoglou is in situ as the manager. But a few years from now, can you imagine sitting at Royal Concert Hall in between Postecoglou and Lennon and talking to them candidly about what was going on when Lennon was there and what changed when Postecoglou came in and what was allowed to change when Postecoglou came in, because that would be box office to hear and see that, because maybe the whole 10 in a row thing would be explained away. And by the way, I wonder the nick that they're in right now. I wonder was 55 worth it? Was 55 worth it for what you're left with right now? Because they threw everything at 55, and now they're back in the Champions League, but they're not competing as I think they all thought they would last night. Because it's not an easy place to go, as we know. It's not an easy place to go. We've gone there with a pretty good firing side in domestically, and we've gone and got absolutely battered by bigger and better teams. So it's testament to Ange Postecoglou that we have a fit and firing domestic team, but also went there on Tuesday and still came away with from the game with plaudits.
I've got to say, talking about plaudits, that's the thing. That's the difference. If there is such a way to be defeated, that's the way to do it on Tuesday night. I've got to say as well, though, JP, I did notice that you had an appearance yourself, such as your ability as a talker of all things Celtic. So well done. I did watch that and I thought it was brilliant during the week there prior to the Real Madrid game.
When you get a text on the morning of the game, or no, was it Tuesday? No, it was Monday. I got a text from an unknown number, and the context of the patter was, it led me to think that it was somebody on the wind-up. The guy saying he was from the BBC asking if I wanted to speak about Celtic against Real Madrid or Celtic in the Champions League, and my immediate go-to thought was that it was one of my... Well, I thought it was Brendan. Let's not beat around the bush. I thought it was my pal Brendan, who is notorious for prankies, and there's a list of prankies that I could rhyme you off that Brendan's done, but I won't bore you with them. But many of them are quite funny, and so I didn't know if it was real or not, and I had to... I actually found the guy on Twitter and I DM'd him just to make sure that it was real. I DM'd him, I was like, I've got his text for you. Is this actually you? And he came back going, yeah, this is real. And he thought it was funny that it was the first time he'd ever had to verify himself to get a guest on these.
How did he get your number?
Apparently I was on the BBC system as John Paul Celtic fan. So I must have just been under this list of
Brilliant.
Celtic fans. I don't know how. I can't remember if I've spoken to the BBC. Oh, maybe I have spoken to the BBC before, maybe during lockdown or something like that. I mean, I tried to blank out a lot of that season, as we all do. But maybe they got my number. Maybe they got in touch from something to do with this Celtic state of mind. I don't know.
You're on their intelligence database.
Well,
that's scary. There's about 1,000 of you watching. Sorry if there's been a wee issue with my signal in here. I will get to the bottom of that. There is horrific weather. I don't know if there's something needing a wee a reset procedure for tomorrow, but I am keen to find out what ACC's avatar is. So if you're listening to ACC, let me know, because JP reckons it's something a wee bit more modern than Midnight Oil. I did love Beds Are Burning.
Beds Are Burning. Oh,
brilliant. Loved that. Superb tune. Let's have a wee look ahead then to the weekend. Back to domestic business. And I guess the big question I'm going to ask is, now that we're into the 2 games a week, do we do what we did against Ross County? Do we rest a few, knowing we've got Shakhtar Donetsk?
I would say so. I mean, Haksabanovic looked good when he came on.
He did.
He looked good when he came on against Ross County as well, but he looked good at the weekend. I think maybe a start for him. Maybe another start for Moy at home. He's not started the game at Celtic Park yet. Ralston, you could argue, could come in. Maybe even Bernabe. you're loath to put in massive changes, but we showed at Ross County away, which is a difficult place to go, that we can change the team up and everyone knows the system and can come in and do a job. So, you know, with the greatest of respects to Livingston, I think we could afford to change it up a bit. Maybe not 9 changes, and it depends how much he wants to have them ticking over for Wednesday. Incidentally, I'm going to be in Spain on Wednesday, so I'm going to need to find a pub in Seville, of all places, to watch the Shakhtar Donetsk game, which is an early kickoff, by the way, if anyone's not noticed that. It's a 5:45 kickoff on Wednesday. So yeah, I would be comfortable if he made changes, because we've seen the depth of the squad and we know what most of those. There's not a lot of unknowns. There's not people that we're still waiting to be like, oh, we've not seen anything of him. What can he do? We've seen what most of the players can do, and even Moy, even Moy, who was seemed to be derided by a lot of the support when he came in, and folk thinking we were going down a different route in terms of their signing strategy and everything else. I remember saying at the time, if Ange Postecoglou is happy to have this guy in, and it's his name that's signed on the dotted line to bring him in, then why would you not be happy with the guy? And the guy's Moy has shown more than capable of. His passing range, I think, is incredible, and would be comfortable with him starting on Saturday. And then you've got Abelgard as well. That's the one guy that we haven't seen. We haven't seen him, obviously, because he's just in the door. Does he start on Saturday? It's exciting to have the choices and not be wondering, or relying upon a sort of tried and tested 11 and then not going beyond that.
Exactly. Not get these guys
squeezing games out of guys every week where you've got the ability to rest them, and there's no way that game on Tuesday, I mean, mentally must have taken a lot out of the players, because your concentration levels in a game like that, I mean, it was borderline giving me a headache.
It's intense. Yeah.
Oh, really intense, because you're no mistakes allowed. They cut you open. I mean, I saw that the first goal analysed by a guy on I can't remember, I think it was tifo.com or something like that. There was a guy that stood, an English guy, and he stood and he analysed the 3 goals that Celtic conceded and used sort of markers to show exactly, Juranovic was pulled out of position and therefore there was a space for Vinicius Junior, so everybody moved across, and Valverde was tight on Jens, and then that ball down the wing just set them open, and then we just got completely cut open. But the concentration levels to get to that point without conceding a goal must have been really, really intense. So it stands to reason that you would want to probably rest a good amount of the team on Saturday, because we've got another big test next Wednesday where it won't be as intense as it was at Celtic Park. It's weird that it's in a different stadium. I don't know how many of their supporters will be there. I don't know, how is that even, it's a question that I've not thought about until this very second. Like, what is the level of their support within Warsaw? I have no idea. And we've only got, 1,300 tickets or something like that? Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot more of us in the ground than the official allocation.
It's going to be a very different Champions League night, isn't it, next week? Yeah. That's for sure. Michael, I probably do need therapy for Ginola, but what a head of hair that guy had, man. I mean, you've got to love it. You've got to love it. And, I have made comparisons between him and Jota. But we have Jota, we didn't have Ginola, we almost did, and I never quite got over that, JP. I'm not sure who the Australian artist is, but Stevie Boy reminds us that Holly Valance had an extraordinary range. Yes, she did. She absolutely did.
Was in the last episode of Neighbours as well.
Oh, did she make a return?
She made a return, in a scene with Natalie and Brulia, even though they were never in the show together. They managed to
try to visualise that scene.
Work an angle to get them both in the same scene.
Wow. Wow. Listen, JP, it's always an absolute pleasure, and I know I continually say that, but it actually is a real pleasure to chat to you. We've had about 1,000 people tuning in live, which is phenomenal, on a Thursday. Thanks everybody for supporting what we do. When we get wee messages like I read out earlier, it really just brings it home that we are getting into people's living rooms and on people's tablets and all that kind of stuff, JP. And it's very, very, to be honest with you, mate, it's humbling when you get a wee message like that, isn't it?
Well, I met a couple of guys on Saturday in the Brazen Head for after the match, and I have to thank them, or one of them, Matthew, for getting me a shot of Zambuca. But I really have Zambuca. In fact, shots full stop are not really my thing. So whilst I appreciated the sentiment, I definitely didn't appreciate it on Sunday morning because, my God, grim. But and David as well. David, who's really keen to come in and see the studio, and we'll set that up for him. He works in Edinburgh, by the way, so he was keen to come in and see the museum that is the Celtic State of Mind studio. It's just a lot more. Welcome. It's a lot more than just that wee corner that you're sitting in right now. I mean, the room next door is quite overwhelming. I see a new thing every single time I come in to see it. You know. All you need to do is look at the bookshelf. We've got everybody on there from Berry Gorty to Bernadette Devlin on that bookshelf as well. So in you come, you will be welcome. Brian, what she was torn about doing it, come on. What I was going to bring up actually is it wasn't that one, it was the one underneath it. Natalie and I seen her live. And I was telling one of the boys in the studio that I was at, I can't even remember what festival it was, but what happened was it Tina Park? No, she did Tina Park.
Ian Brown was on after her, I think, or somebody was on after. So I got in nice and early. I was right down the front. So they don't believe a thing I tell them in here. So one of them brought up the video of her performance at Tina Park, and there's a moment where it pans over to the crowd, and there's me with my Shaun Ryder curtains down the front.
You actually see yourself. There's a video of Pulp from Tina Park where the camera shot goes behind the drum kit, and you can see me, and I've got those kind of 90s train spotting tinted specs on. You know, they were orange tinted specs. Had them on for Pulp's headline set, which was that was my first Tina Park, first festival.
And they're coming back next year, Pulp, coming back for live dates.
Yeah, can't wait. There'll surely be one in Scotland somewhere, so I will be there if I can.
Absolutely. Listen, thank you very much. Before JP and I just digress into music chat, we will let you go. Thank you all for joining us. Once again, thank you to JP Mason for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.